There are things that people do not want to notice for far too long. Sometimes the earth under our feet is not just soil. It is a lid over hiding places, forgotten wars, and other people's secrets that were not supposed to surface. Safes with unknown files, weapons that have lain for decades, dangerous mines, tunnels under cities, and finds that make your skin crawl. And the most disturbing thing is that all this is found by ordinary people, by chance, more and more often. Today on Top Facts, a selection of the most disturbing finds dug up underground awaits you. Watch until the end. We, as always, have left the creepiest ones for last. A hike with a metal detector to a site of abandoned archaeological excavations is the best adventure for a treasure hunter. Diggers discovered antique rings, necklaces, spearheads, and items made of gold, silver, and copper at the site of an ancient settlement. They resembled artifacts of a civilization that existed in that region around the 1st century before the Common Era. The identity of the collection was established thanks to a casket in the shape of a statue and silver brooches with floral motifs characteristic of the cultural heritage of the region. A treasure hunter using a metal detector discovered a sharp, perfectly preserved blade. Just 5 meters away from it lay a rare military buckle in a leather case. This equipment from the time of the First World War probably belonged to some dragoon. Fragments of shells and rusty coins were also discovered nearby, but the main find can still be considered a cavalry saber with a porcelain inlaid hilt. During a hunt with a metal detector in the forest, a researcher dug up a rusty rifle. Its wooden stock had rotted away, and the metal barrel and mechanism were so worn out from time that it was impossible to identify them. In a swampy area, as is known, things are preserved much better. Diggers discovered weapons and ammunition from the time of the Second World War, which had been stored under a thick layer of silt and mud for more than 75 years. Original markings are still preserved on every item. By them, you can track where and when the weapon was produced. And by looking through the archives, you can also find out which battle was the last for them. In an area with a high crime rate, divers pulled a heavy sack out of the icy water. It seemed to be stuffed with dumbbells. Its weight was 97 kilograms. Inside was a whole arsenal that clearly belonged to criminals. Firearms, pistols, rifles, and a revolver with erased serial numbers. Popular models, AR-15 rifles, Tech-9 pistols, a total of 6 units, which the shock team immediately handed over to the police. The question is, did they find exactly what they were looking for in this area? Inside a factory workshop, researchers discovered a huge tunnel-boring machine built for the construction of a subway. The steel colossus, 6 meters wide and 35 meters long, weighed 400 tons. But it was never used even once. This guy just discovered the skeletal remains of Soviet submarines, left right on the assembly line at an abandoned military shipbuilding enterprise. The old factory has now become a mass grave for underwater vehicles, the production of which was canceled even before the structures were completed. A team of workers entered the so-called Gates of Hell to take one last look at the legendary abandoned coal mine. In conditions where the air is dangerously polluted, only professionals can be present. They came to pay a farewell visit before the mine is closed forever. No one else will admire its solid wooden finishing. So you and I caught the moment. Professional explorers made a stunning discovery deep beneath a bustling city. There, in the tunnel of an abandoned mine, stand 25 old coal wagons. When production was closed, the mine was flooded. Each of these wagons worked hard, making countless trips, fueling the industrial growth of America, until the rising water level and the deadly concentration of hydrogen sulfide cut them off from the world. Inside an abandoned Soviet bomb shelter, independent researchers discovered a working teletype, hermetic armored doors, and radio transmitters. Everything had remained sealed here decades ago. And yet, for some reason, the light in it continued to burn. Who knows? Maybe someone continued to hide here. The next find dates back to 1952. You will not believe it. This is an antique cheese-making factory. Enthusiasts descended into the dark corridors to examine the original wooden shelves for aging cheese, next to which rusty equipment sits under a collapsed ceiling. The most curious thing is that after many years, a musty cheese smell can still be felt here. Most likely over 100 years, the walls have been completely soaked with the aroma of the cheese wheels that once ripened in these workshops. Now it is clear why some airlines forbid passengers from transporting cheese in the cabin of airplanes. What looks like a secret hideout of a sorcerer in the middle of the forest is actually the observatory of Indiana University Night Ridge. Built in 1936, this brick dome once housed a powerful telescope for scanning the night sky. But a fallen tree damaged the building and mechanisms, so now nature rules there, not science. Beyond the gates of this old estate remained the entire life of a French gendarme officer. Wasteland explorers entered the abandoned house and discovered personal belongings, uniforms, documents, and photographs in the rooms. They looked as if the owner had gone out one day and never returned. Military awards, antique furniture, and handwritten letters tell a whole story about the person who once lived here. This abandoned house can be considered one of the best preserved. It is a pity that no one set up a house museum here. Not far from an abandoned town in Nevada, this old bus stands next to a Toyota station wagon near a miner's cabin, which is packed with his personal belongings. Hospital documents, a checkbook, and dog hair indicate that the elderly gold prospector lived away from civilization until 2019 and was forced to leave the house due to health problems, since he did not drive a car himself. Now, his last place of residence is falling into decay without a master. Jerome in Arizona is a famous ghost town, a former copper center of the late 19th century, which emptied after the closure of the mines in 1953 and turned from a noisy mining town into one of the creepiest nightmares of America. Huge industrial smelting furnaces and strange giant mechanisms from the time of the Gold King mine still stand on the deserted landscape. Since mining ceased, they have been left abandoned and stand untouched for decades. Once there was also a large hospital here, where about 9,000 miners died from injuries sustained at the dangerous work. And now on this dusty hill, only rusting machines, empty buildings, and someone's unfulfilled dreams remain. There's probably no sight more ominous than a city where life suddenly stopped. Houses and schools stand empty, but belongings and transport are still in their places, as if people evaporated. The real ghost town of Pripyat is a true story. In 1986, after the Chernobyl disaster, it froze forever. Thrill seekers visit here to walk through the iconic amusement park, where the Ferris wheel still sways in the wind. Apartment buildings have preserved the furniture of the owners and the toys of their children. One can only imagine what was happening here at the moment when 50,000 people were fleeing. Treasure hunters discovered a red metal safe buried deep underground, which clearly was not supposed to catch anyone's eye. Inside the heavy box, they discovered stacks of money, files, a pistol, information on discs, and other personal items. This find raises more questions than answers. No one reported later what kind of documents these were and what records the discs contained. It seems that a massive collection of surveillance materials was subject to liquidation, possibly just like the target itself. Usually they say, hide the ends in the water, but you can also hide them in the ground. The chances that someone will accidentally find them are extremely small. You can also hit the jackpot at sea. A search party pulled a lost cargo container from the waves and discovered a whole fortune in brand new iPhones in it. One could have not reported such a find to anyone. As they say, he who is not going to live forever does not need a perpetual motion machine. But it probably exists. Here before us is an almost century-old engine that is still functional, a relic of the mechanical era, when machines were built to last for centuries, to serve several generations. Imagine that you are digging in the dirt and feel yourself hit something hard. It turned out to be the handlebars of an off-road motorcycle produced in 1985, which spent decades underground. Surprisingly, the frame and engine were mostly intact, which gave hope for a restoration project. I wonder how much effort it will take for this zombie motorcycle to be able to ride again. It would seem like an ordinary find in a barn. Someone got not a rare muscle car, but an old police car with a flashing beacon. It spent many years in oblivion, but instead found a new owner who was happy to take up its restoration. Perhaps this became his most ambitious project. Rescue teams for old cars also exist. Enthusiasts seek out abandoned cars and restore them to working condition. This time, they pulled a red Pontiac Firebird from the 1980s out of the river, making a blood-curdling discovery. A concrete block lay on its pedals. This was done intentionally and indicates that the car was stolen and hidden in this way. Stripped of its vehicle identification number and license plates, this steel ghost was clearly meant to disappear forever. I wonder what criminal or dramatic story is hidden behind all this. Suddenly you know something? Please share in the comments. In an abandoned garage, this lucky guy discovered a dusty Chevrolet Fleetmaster produced in 1948, which languished for decades in its silent prison without seeing the light of day. Although the classic car had been parked for a very long time, its chrome grille still shone through a thick layer of dust. Despite years of neglect, such finds can cost a fortune and become the life's work of collectors dreaming of breathing new life into the history of the automotive industry. We hope that this supercar was lucky. In the ruins of a wooden barn, another sleeping beauty was discovered, a classic Austin A40 Farina, produced in 1958. This car stood untouched for 43 years, almost buried under layers of junk. Some are lucky enough to discover a whole open-air auto museum. Deep in the forest, someone stumbled upon a cemetery of mid-century classic cars. Dozens of rare cars, including vintage Fords and Chevrolets, are rusting here in the open air, and trees are sprouting right through their engine compartments. It is a pity that so many valuable cars were left abandoned in the forest, and no one has yet undertaken to bring them back to their senses. A pretty good collection is gathered in this British auto morgue. Dozens of classic cars rest here, from a rare Ford Model T, almost exactly the same age as the 20th century, to a Rover 2000 coupe produced in the 1930s with a mileage of only 49,000 kilometers. You can also admire an Austin Cambridge with handmade steel trim. Even its key is still sticking in the ignition switch. Apparently, this is a sign that the owner of these treasures has left this world, leaving a whole era of history to slowly fade away. Driving by, people noticed an abandoned Hyundai bus standing alone away from the road. The 45-seat giant stuck here was completely covered in mud and stuck off-road. When they decided to look at its technical condition, they found only mud and weeds, which had already taken over everything inside and even penetrated the engine. This dump truck was recovered from the bottom. After many years under a layer of silt, it looks like a swamp monster. Due to the thick layer of mud, We will never guess what color it was before. During a walk, tourists stumbled upon a classic military truck forgotten in the forest. And after a long service in battles, this giant was defeated by nature a few decades later. This Volkswagen fan tracked down a rare Swedish snowmobile. Only 2,265 of such machines were produced. Inside, it was a Volkswagen Beetle engine, which at that time had not worked for 5 years. The machine with massive rubber tracks was created for passing through deep snow and even for making polar expeditions. Rescue teams extracted 2 rare tracked vehicles from the time of the Second World War from the mud, SDKFC 250 and SDKFC 7, which served the German army. It took 3 days to extract the heavy equipment with the help of massive cranes. Surprisingly, one of the machines was in such excellent condition that the team had a desire to restore it to a fully working condition. Explorers risked twice to penetrate an abandoned Italian military base to get to what satellite images promised. Finally, their efforts were crowned with success, and a whole field of tanks and combat vehicles appeared before the eyes of amazed fans of military equipment. The mileage of some of them was only 422 kilometers, and periscopes and containers with ammunition remained completely untouched. The cannon of one of the tanks far exceeded the popular calibers from the time of the Second World War, but the steel monster is slowly losing its last war to rust and vegetation. Let us look into a private Estonian museum where legendary Soviet steel monsters are kept, such as the T-34 tank and the MTU-20 bridge layer. Once this collection belonged to the late Elhins Turs and is now located in an estate where the first president of Estonia lived. Surprisingly, some machines remain so functional that visitors can even order a sightseeing trip. A Cold War military reconnaissance vehicle was extracted from dense thickets, which hid in natural camouflage for years and waited to be discovered. Restoration enthusiasts pulled out a British Scout tracked armored car, which once could reach speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. Now the car will be given a new incarnation. A full restoration will bring this formidable beast back to life. And now, let us go to the dead field where iron monsters of all stripes are decomposing. This British auto cemetery is filled with rusting excavators, telescopic handlers, and tractors, which are gradually eaten by nature. In New Zealand, a 32-ton locomotive, produced in 1885, was extracted from the mud with a crane. It had lain in the river for more than a century. Surely it earned not only respect, but also a full restoration and continuation of its career as a museum exhibit. In the desert of Iraq, adventurers discovered a whole railway depot with hundreds of rusty locomotives. Once they helped develop the economy of the country, and then were unfairly left to the mercy of fate. It must be a very offensive feeling when veterans of labor are doomed to oblivion. Look at an antique railway depot in the United Kingdom, where carriages of different generations were found, including the legendary Mark I first-class restaurant car from the 1960s, with separate booths, exquisite finishing, and elegance that outshines modern trains. The equipped buffet car still had its compact kitchen. But since this exposition is located next to active railway tracks, its century is unlikely to last long. A mysterious 18-meter fiberglass sphere, presumably a Cold War-era radar dome, was found in a Russian forest. How did it end up here? Perhaps while being transported by helicopter, it fell off the cable. Share in the comments if you know anything about it. A flooded Soviet submarine became an underground tomb of military secrets. The B-73 model, produced in 1957, was used to test the first nuclear ballistic missiles, the launch of which was carried out underwater. And now, when a flood happens here every day, during low tide, the remains of the equipment are exposed, and people, suspecting nothing, walk over a historical monument of missile tests. Imagine the feelings if you came across a mysterious submarine in the open sea. It surfaced and just loomed in the water, without any warning buoys or lights. It is curious to know how this vessel ended up here, and what kind of story is hidden behind its loneliness. And now let us return to 1997. This is a nuclear submarine of the 670 SCAT series. During a search operation, the Soviet vessel was discovered at the bottom of the ocean. The Valentine bunker near Bremen is the largest secret hangar in Germany, 426 meters long, with walls 4.5 meters thick. It was erected between 1943 and 1945 by the forces of more than 10,000 workers with the goal of designing boats. It was planned to assemble Type 21 diesel submarines on the production line. But this did not happen, because Allied bombers pierced the 7-meter ceiling in March 1945, and not a single submarine was ever built inside this secret factory. Sea travelers stumbled upon the final resting place of the steamship Selma. The huge historical oil tanker was launched on the day the First World War ended. This ship never participated in hostilities. It worked as a civilian vessel until its last day. The 23-meter fishing vessel Susan Rose sank in 2023 in the Atlantic and was finally raised off the coast of New Jersey. On this beach, the hubbub of children is not heard, and no one splashes in the waves. There are not even seagulls or seals here. But among the vacationers, there are only old-timers, the ruins of ships, and the skeleton of a vessel washed ashore. These guys went on an adventure to a remote island on a regular boat to get to a fort that is considered no one's. The castle of the sea fortress was once turned into a hotel, which cost $4 million. Now it stands ownerless. An abandoned, formerly luxurious palace is still full of antiques. Voices do not sound in the chic apartments. Desolation reigns there. The huge steel fort turned into a ghost. It silently keeps its stories. Surely very interesting ones. Maybe you have heard about this place. Share with us in the comments. The next find happened in a village field where a Soviet Ka-26 helicopter was hidden. It turned out to be abandoned here for 2 years. A total of 816 copies of this configuration were built. And despite the fact that the machine stood in the open air, this helicopter is surprisingly well preserved. Its iconic rotors and cabin were still in working condition. Aviation equipment fans remain true to their cause. They consider that this Cold War-era relic could take to the skies again. To get to this place on the territory of a Royal Air Force base in the United Kingdom, researchers walked for hours. And so, they reached a secret training airfield where Cold War relics are stored. Among the equipment is a Soviet Su-22M fighter bomber. Mock-ups of torpedoes are still attached to it, a French Nisso Misty 4, an American T-33 shooting star, and a surprisingly well-preserved Mi-24 attack helicopter with the possibility of transporting landing troops, nicknamed Crocodile, which stands with a locked padlock on its cabin. From a bird's-eye view, it looks like a giant parking lot, but we see the famous Air and Spaceport airplane cemetery in the California Mojave Desert. Dozens of huge Boeing 747 airliners and other commercial airplanes lined up in rows in the desert, stripped of engines and valuable electronics. The dry air preserves their metal structures, which await disposal or dismantling for parts. A tourist wandering through the dense forest discovered an abandoned airplane. Its aluminum fuselage was hiding in the thickets and survived almost completely intact. It seems it once made an emergency landing between the trees. After 74 years of being at the bottom of a lake, a German Bf-109 G2 military airplane was pulled out of the water. That very fighter, known as the Messerschmitt 109 Gustav, still bore the marks of the last battle when it crash-landed on the ice in 1944. A Dutch Fokker 28-passenger airplane stands on a highway in Lagos. This is a low-wing aircraft with a T-shaped tail, which in its second life was supposed to produce food and not rust in the rain. It was brought to the expressway many years ago to be converted into a restaurant. The project failed, and this airplane remained standing on Nigerian land from where it is unlikely to be able to get out. Now the fuselage is collapsing under tropical downpours, and vegetation is slowly absorbing the landing gear and wings. Let us look inside a secret hangar where Soviet airplanes long for the sky. In Lithuania, an abandoned aviation hangar was discovered, in which disassembled helicopters and gliders stand, and archives from 1982 gather dust. But not everything here is absolutely destroyed. Some airplanes clearly survived active restoration, and there is also a minivan with a mileage of 460,000 kilometers here. It means someone still visits it. This place in the Murmansk region was once famous as a Cold War-era airbase. The military base was built in 1953 near the village of Kilpiavr. It was not just an airfield. Local fighters once intercepted North Atlantic Treaty Organization reconnaissance flights, including the famous incident of 1987. Then, over the Barents Sea, a Soviet Su-27 fighter prevented a Norwegian Orion patrol aircraft from tracking submarines. Now, the abandoned airport has become a useless exposition of decommissioned fighters that stand abandoned on the runway. Travelers waded through the vegetation in the dense Cambodian jungle to find the wreckage of a crashed airplane. Its mangled fuselage lies in the same place where it fell and is gradually being swallowed up by the rainforest. A mysterious disc-shaped object was discovered underwater, looking exactly like a sunken flying saucer. But its true origin remains unknown. Do you think this is someone's creation or a real, unidentified flying object? In this video of not very clear quality, a helicopter is transporting a mysterious object in the shape of a giant saucer. I wonder, is this a building material, a secret military apparatus, or a real unidentified flying object? Share your thoughts. In America, they really love everything related to unidentified flying objects, and even joke about this topic. A driver stopped by the road, seeing a flying saucer parked near a cafe. A good way to attract customers, do you not find? But who knows? Maybe aliens also love hot dogs. Researchers discovered a strange saucer-shaped object deep in the forest. Do you think this is a petrified, ancient, unidentified flying object or some industrial device? When it comes to sunken gold in such quantities, there is a powerful motivation to equip a large-scale search operation. Thus, gold bars were raised from the bottom from the ship Central America, which is also called the Ship of Gold, because it then transported booty from the gold rush era. On September 12, 1857, on the coastal shallows of Cape Hatteras, the ship was wrecked due to a hurricane, and one of the largest gold hoards sank into the abyss. A rare bar numbered Just and Hunter went at auction for millions of dollars. And on this, today's treasure hunt ends. Which of the finds, in your opinion, became the best and was definitely worth the effort spent? Tell us in the comments. And if you want a continuation or something similar, then write about it in the comments, hit the likes, and subscribe to the TopFacts channel for collections of the most incredible facts and videos from all over the internet. Thank you for watching, and watch the previous incredible episodes.